think we have some young ladies here who traveled all the way to Albany with me and Lyle and a few others. Could you raise your hands? I see Lisa and I see Kara. We took a bus ride with about 50 people to advocate and meet with Senator Gallivan and with Senator Gallivan that day, and every little bit helped.
Barbara's here.
And Barbara Collins just walked in. She represents Assemblyman Bill Noje. Thank you, Barbara. I think as far as our board of directors, unless I missed someone in attendance tonight, we have Sherry Englert, our immediate past president, and Marcy Van Zant is our current president. And Linda Unger is sitting right next to her. And Lyle Lehman is here back in the room a little bit. So how did we get here? We have some information in front of you up on the wall. Back in the 1990s, New York State began to convert many of our services to Medicaid. And one of the results of that was that there was quite a bit of growth and there was quite a bit of development that occurred when that was going on. And for ourselves, we're a nice art chapter. And if you're a nice art chapter, you're 48 operating chapters across New York State. That means that your board and your leadership are family members. We've always felt that we were a little bit unique because of that, because it's a built-in quality control mechanism, because families always know what they want. And we've seen a lot of change in our field. We went from the institutions of the 1950s, we went through Willowbrook being exposed, community programs being developed, and we should all give ourselves a lot of credit because over the span of quite a few years, we really improved things, and the community inclusion aspect of what we do really has occurred. And we've had these recent events that have come up, and tonight we want to try to explain as best as we can, but I should say that things are kind of fluid. A few months ago, I would have predicted that we wouldn't have had anything to worry about as far as being cut, and all of a sudden that reared its head, and now through a lot of hard work, it's gone. But that's what I mean, things are changing quite a bit. People often say follow the money and you can figure some things out, and that's what this is intended to do. This is how services work now. This is how the money flows on the services we provide. You see in that top block there, CMS, which stands for Medicaid, really. It's a federal agency that really oversees all the long-term care services in the nation. And you can see that Medicaid pays money on the left to New York State, because New York State has huge operations that they run, and then they pay money to provider agencies like us as well. We bill them directly, by the way. We bill Medicaid directly. And New York State pays for half of the services. So there's a shared responsibility between the federal government and New York State. Clearly the state's motivation way back in the 1990s was to enhance services and have the federal government participate in helping to pay for those services. And it's really resulted in a system in New York State that's better than any other state in the U.S. So here you have in front of you different headlines. These headlines at least help understand how we got to where we're at today. And these are kind of wide-ranging, and I'll go through them and I'll elaborate a little bit. But I think it's important to understand just what has been going on over the past few years. And the top one is something about a pay scandal. And these are all actual headlines, and the dates are with them. and news of $1 million executive pay package and platinum-plated perks at the Young Adult Institute, etc. You can see that from 2011. This is a private provider just like we are, by the way, a very large one in New York City. And it was exposed that their top two executives were making about $1 million a year. Clearly that's a lot of money and it's hard to defend that. It tarnished all of our images. And just so happened those two executives were brothers, by the way. So that didn't help. And then we had the very unfortunate circumstance of $5 million payment ends up suit over death of a 13-year-old boy named Jonathan Carey. And that created a whole host of safeguards and systems to help further protect people from neglect and abuse. Headline there about the Wells fire. That was an unfortunate incident that occurred where people lost their lives just kind of north of Glens Falls, in that area. We're very close to Adirondack Park. And then the headline about, and this is kind of a big one, $4,556 a day, New York Disabled Care #1 in the nation. This was the method that New York State received money from Medicaid. So about 1,300 people at the date of this headline lived in institutions in New York State. New York State was receiving that much money. And this headline comes from the Poughkeepsie Journal. And a reporter there got a hold of this information and started a series of articles. Any taxpayer in this room would kind of sit back and think, wait a second, 4,556 times 365 days is a lot of money per year for a person. And the excess money was being used for community programs like we run. That's what was going on. But it's a terrible looking headline. The theme of all these headlines, by the way, is little by little, we were all getting embarrassed. When I say we all, I mean us, and I mean New York State. There wasn't any one person who had the corner on this market. And then we finally had a recent House of Representatives report that was really created by Representative Darrell Issa. He is a congressman from the state of California. He's the chair of the Oversight Committee, and he did an analysis and a report of how, at least in his opinion, Medicaid money was being wasted in New York State. All of this served to embarrass a lot of people. And that put people in a position where they're trying to figure out what's the future of Medicaid going to be and what do we need to protect it, what do we need to do to protect it. So you had that backdrop of information. You can see the kind of headlines that were going on. We get a new governor elected. He comes in with facing a massive deficit. So he's got to do something. He's got to cut spending. He's got to close the budget. There's a certain amount of joking that goes on about politicians in New York State and some of the governors we've had and some of the things like that. And I think the people in New York State were ready for a strong governor. Cuomo really fit the bill, and he is really pushing things through, and he cut spending, he truly cut spending. When I said we got cut $800,000 in 2011, there was a direct relationship to that initiative. Frankly, and this is my opinion, I can't prove this, I think all those newspaper headlines had a big impact on Governor Cuomo, and a state agency that used to be called OMRDD, now OPWDD, sorry for all the acronyms, had a sterling reputation, and they began to be somewhat of a political problem for the governor. And I think that's what's led us to managed care. So what was really happening over the past few years is As information's developing, and the state's trying to figure out how can we secure, how can we keep that incredible amount of funding that comes from the federal government to support services for people with developmental disabilities. And the final resolution of that was managed care. And we, as staff people, we spent a lot of time trying to figure this out. And we're still trying to figure it out. And what happens under managed care is New York State sort of gets out of the business of dealing with providers, and they push that off to a managed care organization. And instead of, there's 700 providers like us in New York State, and instead of writing checks out to 700 providers, they maybe will write checks out to a few managed care organizations, or better yet, only one from their perspective, I suppose. So, some of you have heard about DISCOs. I don't know where these things come from, these names, these acronyms, but a DISCO is a managed care organization. So what we're trying to show with the information on the wall is a graphic depiction of how things change. You have CMS, which is Medicaid. Now all of a sudden they're sending money directly to DISCO, a managed care organization. Luckily, our state association, NYSARC, wants to be a DISCO, so they would get paid a lump sum of money. And let's just say, for speaking purposes,